Imagine a world without the internet.
No social media, no streaming, no instant messaging, no emails.
If you wanted information, you walked to a library. If you wanted to talk to someone across the world, you wrote a letter and waited weeks.
That world existed not centuries ago, but just a few decades back. The internet, this invisible force that now shapes nearly every moment of our lives, has one of the most fascinating origin stories in all of technology.
And it begins, perhaps surprisingly, with fear. Let me take you back to 1957. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union was at its peak. The Soviets had just launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, into orbit. It was a tiny, beeping metal sphere, but it sent shockwaves through the American government. If the Soviets could put a satellite in space, what else could they do? Could they strike American communication networks from above? The fear was real, and it demanded a response. That response came from the United States Department of Defense, which created a new agency called ARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Agency. Its mission was simple but enormous: make sure America never fell behind in technology again. And one of the biggest problems ARPA tackled was communication. At the time, military communication relied on centralized networks. Think of it like a wheel with spokes. Everything connected to one central hub. If an enemy destroyed that hub, the entire network collapsed. It was a single point of failure, and in a nuclear war, that was an unacceptable risk. So researchers asked a radical question. What if there was no center? What if you could build a network where information could travel along multiple paths, finding its own way from one point to another, even if parts of the network were destroyed? This idea became known as packet switching. Instead of sending a message as one continuous stream, you would break it into small chunks, called packets, and each packet could take a different route through the network to reach the same destination. When all the packets arrived, they would reassemble into the original message. It was brilliant, resilient, and completely revolutionary. In 1969, this theory became reality. ARPA built ARPANET, the very first version of what we now call the Internet. On October 29, 1969, a team at UCLA sent the very first message over ARPANET to a team at Stanford Research Institute. The message was supposed to be the word login. They typed the L, and it went through. They typed the O, and it went through. Then the system crashed. So the very first message ever sent over the internet was just two letters, LO. It was humble, it was glitchy, and it changed the world forever. Over the next few years, ARPANET grew steadily. More universities and research institutions connected to it. Scientists used it to share data, collaborate on research, and send electronic messages to each other. By the early 70s, email had become the network's most popular feature, something nobody had originally planned for. People simply loved the ability to send written messages instantly. But ARPANET had a serious limitation. It was one network, and it could only talk to itself. Other networks were being built around the world, in universities and governments, but they all used different technical languages, different protocols. They couldn't communicate with each other. It was like having telephones that only worked within a single building. This is where two brilliant computer scientists entered the story. Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn recognized the problem and set out to solve it. They developed a universal set of rules for how computers on any network could communicate with computers on any other network. They called it TCP/IP, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. Think of TCP/IP as a universal translator. No matter what language your network spoke internally, TCP/IP provided a common language that every network could understand. It handled how data was broken into packets, how those packets were addressed and routed across multiple networks, and how they were reassembled at their destination. On January 1, 1983, ARPANET officially switched to TCP/IP. This date is often called the birthday of the Internet, because it was the moment when the concept of a single interconnected global network became technically possible. Now, different networks around the world could link together and communicate seamlessly. The word Internet itself is a shortening of internetworking, the act of connecting networks together.
What had started as a military project was quietly becoming something much larger.
Throughout the 80s, the internet grew, but it remained the domain of academics, researchers, and government agencies.
The average person had no idea it existed, and even if they did, using it required specialized knowledge and command line interfaces that were far from user-friendly. The internet was powerful, but it was locked behind a wall of technical complexity.
It needed someone to build a door. That someone was Tim Berners-Lee, a British computer scientist working at CERN, the European Particle Physics Laboratory in Switzerland. In 1989, Berners-Lee had a problem.
CERN employed thousands of researchers from all over the world, and they all had information stored on different computers using different systems. Finding and sharing information was a nightmare of incompatibility.
Berners-Lee proposed a solution.
He wanted to combine the internet with hypertext, a concept where documents could contain clickable links to other documents. He envisioned a web of information where you could jump from one page to another, following connections wherever your curiosity led you. By 1990, he had built all the fundamental pieces.
He created HTML, the language used to write web pages. He created HTTP, the protocol for transferring those pages across the internet. He created the URL system for giving every page a unique address.
And he built the world's first web browser and the world's first web server.
Tim Berners-Lee didn't just invent a piece of the World Wide Web. He invented all of it.
And in one of the most generous decisions in the history of technology, he gave it away for free. He made the World Wide Web an open standard, available to anyone, with no patents, no royalties, and no restrictions.
He could have become one of the richest people on the planet.
Instead, he chose to give the world a gift. The impact was immediate and staggering. In 1993, there were only about 130 websites in existence.
By 1997, there were over 1 million. The Mosaic web browser, and later Netscape Navigator, gave ordinary people a visual, intuitive way to explore this new digital world.
Businesses rushed online.
Amazon started selling books. Yahoo tried to organize every website into categories.
And people everywhere began to realize that this internet, was going to change absolutely everything.
And it did. Today, more than 5 billion people use the internet. We carry it in our pockets.
It powers our economies, our education systems, our entertainment, and our social lives. We video call family members on the other side of the planet without a second thought.
We access more information in a single day than a person in the 18th century might encounter in an entire lifetime.
The internet has reshaped human civilization in less than 50 years, and it all started with a crashed two-letter message between two computers in California.
What makes this story even more remarkable is that no single person created the internet.
It was built by dreamers, engineers, scientists, and visionaries across decades and continents. From the Cold War paranoia that funded ARPANET, to the elegant protocols designed by Cerf and Kahn, to the radical generosity of Tim Berners-Lee, the internet is a monument to human collaboration and ingenuity. If this story fascinated you, I would truly appreciate it if you hit that like button right now. It helps more people discover stories like this one. And if you want to keep exploring the incredible history behind the technology we use every day, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new video. I have so many more stories like this one coming your way, and I cannot wait to share them with you.
Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.